Good evening and welcome to this edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Joanne Williams. I have a little cold tonight, but I wanted to join you because we have some fascinating features that I want to share with you. This week, Milwaukee author Irma Stowers shares her childhood experiences of growing up in a part of Mississippi where blacks were beaten and hanged. We'll remember the life and legacy of policeman and community leader Felmers O. Chaney, and we'll close our celebration of Women's History Month with a profile of Corinne Owens, the mother of Racine's civil rights movement. But we begin with a discussion of the jobs skill gap. Last week, Governor Scott Walker signed a new workforce development bill he says will help close the jobs skill gap. He outlined the plan in his budget message earlier this year.
As we work to create more jobs, we need people with the skills to fill the jobs. Our budget includes nearly $100 million in new state support for workforce development. We include resources for grants for employers, support for apprenticeships, programs for veterans, funds for our technical colleges and University of Wisconsin system. We understand that the state which is able to fix the job skill gap is the state that will lead the country in economic development. We want Wisconsin to be that leader.
But a recent report suggests that the job skills gap is a myth. Dr. Mark Levine is the head of the UWM Center for Economic Development and authored the study. Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me.
Well, that's pretty bold to say that this job skills gap is a myth. What do you mean by that?
Well, pretty much what it says, that the claim that we are suffering from high unemployment because there aren't enough skilled workers out there, that the problem is basically we have a lot of dumb workers and bad schools, is simply a false claim. That when we look at the actual functioning of labor markets, the real problem is that we don't have enough jobs out there for the number of people who are actually looking for jobs. We have what we call a jobs gap. We have almost four job seekers for every job that's available in the labor market. And then when we look at the sectors of the economy where supposedly there's this great skills gap, and we've heard about this for years in Milwaukee, the inability to find any qualified welders, CNC machinists. But when we look at those sectors of the economy as well, we don't see any indication of what we would, I think, see if there were in fact a skills gap, and that is wages going up, employers just beating the bushes to find people to fill those slots. So when we look at sort of basic economic indicators, wages, hours, the general employment trends in various sectors of the economy, there's just simply no economic evidence that we have a skills gap in Wisconsin. What we really have is a jobs gap.
You also say that we have an underemployment situation. We have a lot of very skilled people who are underemployed.
Correct.
They're working at jobs that they're wildly overqualified for.
And that's the flip side of having a jobs gap. If we don't have a sufficient number of jobs for people in the economy, overqualified people who are over-credentialed for the kinds of jobs that they're taking are simply going to take those jobs because they need employment, they need income. And so in fact, we have what I call in the paper that I wrote in the inverse of a skills gap. We have this problem of underemployment in which we've got overqualified people taking jobs that are below their education levels. 25%, for example, of the retail salespersons in the greater Milwaukee area have a college degree. That's a job that the Bureau of Labor Statistics says requires a high school degree or less. A staggering percentage, 77% of all bartenders in greater Milwaukee have either a college degree or have attended some college. Again, that's a job that, in terms of the skills required, simply requires a high school degree. So the problem is not that we don't have a sufficient number of qualified people. The problem is that we don't have enough jobs for the very highly qualified people that we have in the economy. Our educational attainment has been going up over the last 3 decades. Our skills levels have been going up. I mean, there are bottlenecks in the labor market, but I think we're in pretty good shape in that regard.
Well, in the last few years, we've heard nothing but the skills gap. That's been the devil that's causing everybody to get upset.
Right.
Manufacturers saying we have a skills gap. And where did that come from? Was that just sort of made up, or is there some evidence for that?
Well, some of it is made up, I think, and I think it's made up as a diversion from the real problems facing the economy. It's made up to take attention off the issues of trade policy, of offshoring, of deindustrialization, of manufacturers moving their jobs out of areas in search of low-wage, non-union labor. So part of it is to sort of blame the problems of the economy on workers as opposed to, I think, bad corporate decision-making. But some of it is, I think, a legitimate sense on the part of employers that they can't seem to as easily find employees as they have in the past. But what they're not doing is looking inward. They're blaming it on everybody else. They're blaming it on the workers. They're blaming it on MATC. They're blaming it on universities, and not sort of saying, well, what are we as employers doing to find the best employees? Our expectations unrealistic? Are we doing proper training? Are our human resources offices working effectively? I mean, when you have a situation, for example, let's go to the case of the welders, where you've got throughout the Midwest in relatively close proximity to Wisconsin, somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,500 to 3,000 unemployed welders, and we only have 400 welding openings, it strains credulity to think that we can't find a qualified welder. So I think part of the issue here is that employers need to kind of look inward a little bit and figure out what they can do better.
Is there hope for all these people who don't have jobs but have skills?
Well, I think there is hope if we get our policies aligned properly. I mean, I think the biggest problem is not that there's a skills gap. The biggest problem is that we have flawed management strategies in terms of job creation, and we have bad macroeconomic policies that are not creating a sufficient number of jobs. A lot of this has to take place at the national level. We need a much more stimulative, investment-oriented policy nationally to create jobs, but we can do a lot more at the state level as well in terms of investments in infrastructure that will create jobs, and will take Wisconsin, I think, to a better place than it's been, for example, over the last 2 years, where we rank 44th of the 50 states in terms of job creation.
Well, I thank you very much for coming and talking with us. We'll have to come back and talk again about the whole issue of job creation.
I'd be happy to do it.
Who should do it, who should not do it, and how much will it all cost?
Great.
Thank you very much for talking with us today.
Thanks, Joanne. Thanks for having me.
Irma Griffin Stowers lived in fear the first 15 years of her life.
I was scared to go to sleep at night. I'd be screaming at night. Don't let them get me. Don't let them get me.
Growing up in the 40s for a black person in Mississippi was sometimes a dangerous thing. Irma Griffin Stowers grew up in Carthage, Mississippi, and shared her story of growing up in a time of crisis and hatred.
It was hard living in Mississippi. As a child, it was very hard for me because the way my parents was treated and the way I was treated, and my sisters and brothers, we had a hard life. But my father, him and the peoples that he worked for, they were nice and they got along good. So it was good people and it was bad people.
Stowers captured this time and place of our history in the book she wrote, The Lily Hill Story.
Lily Hill is a wooded area where they take black people and whip them or hang them.
And her family experienced Lily Hill firsthand after her father had a confrontation with a white man.
He was crying to my mom. He said, I just hit a white man. About an hour later, they came with dogs, trucks, on horseback. And my mama had hit him in the loft. So he kept quiet for a while, but then they went up in the loft and they got him. They pushed my mother down, and she was screaming, please don't kill my husband, please. And so they took my dad out, took him to the Lily Hill, and they beat him. So another white gentleman that was friend of my father's, my mom and my brother and them was screaming, so he said, well, I'll go down there and I'll stop him. He went down there and he stopped him. They didn't kill him, but they had the rope around his neck. He shot up in the air and told them, let him down. So they let him down, but they beat him unconscious. So that was one terrifying thing. seeing my father get beaten.
Stowers has put on paper how black people were once treated in America's segregated South.
We couldn't, like, we go to the movie theater. We couldn't sit with white people. We had to sit upstairs and they sit downstairs. We couldn't drink from the fountain. We couldn't get served at a table. We have to stand at the back door and they bring our stuff outside. And we were always called names, but we could never fight back. We have to take whatever we were called. We have to take it. If we were spit on, we still have to take that. And that was hard life for me.
When she was 13, she was accosted by 6 white guys.
I pleaded and I pleaded with her, let me go. Just let me go. One said, I'm going first. And I said, let me go. I said, I'll meet you on Friday. And they said, can we believe you? I said, yeah. So when I got in the house, they let me go. And when I got in the house, my mother and father was up. They said, didn't we hear you screaming out there? I lied. I said, no, because I was afraid if I tell my dad that he was going to do something, and my brother, he would have did something.
Afraid they would be taken to Lily Hill.
We got in the car, and they took us to a wooded area. And what they did, they had me in their car first. And I blamed myself for my friend all this time because I got her into trouble. So I had explained to the dude that I was sick because I had been raped already. He let me out. So then my friend had to get in there and be raped by 6 dudes. And I blamed myself for that.
The pain of this incident has stayed with her, but there was no one who could have helped. And if they did, they may have been taken to Lily Hill.
I wrote the book. I wanted people to know about the Lily Hill. They kept that hush-hush. And today, it's still hush-hush unless people sit down and talk about it that's been through that. A lot of people are scared to talk about Lily Hill, and I don't know why, but I thought it should be, people should know about it.
During World War II, many African Americans were recruited from the South to work in the wartime industries. Milwaukee and the surrounding areas had a booming industry, and Racine was part of that boom. At the end of the war, when the government contracts ended, so did many of the jobs for blacks. In many ways, a new era of discrimination was setting in. This is the environment Burris and Corinne Owens entered in 1946 Racine.
My husband is, war was over, War was over. It was just before Christmas, remember? And and he came home and stayed there for a while. Then he came to his family was in Racine. Yeah, he had a brother and father and mother was here.
Now, when you came to Racine, what was the environment like for African Americans?
Oh boy, what I tell you, it was something when I got here, because I came from Mississippi.
Houston, Mississippi.
Houston, Huckey, Thelma, all those towns. Yeah, and so I came after school was out in May. I was a school teacher, and I taught 13 years.
Okay.
Yeah, before coming here. The housing was so bad, it was just terrible.
Okay.
And we have to live in basements and so deplorable.
Now, in 1946, when you and your husband arrived, did you have a hard time finding housing?
Oh my goodness, sure. We had to live and rent in a room for a while. For a while, we rented a room, and then my sister-in-law and her husband, she brought her home.
Mrs. Owens and her husband lived with her sister-in-law for a short period of time. As civil rights became a bigger issue for the nation, the NAACP played a major role in the fight for justice.
Housing, and it was sewer it was everything water, you know, and so we met with the city council and took our position, all the petitions, you know, and so, but it was something.
George Stinson assisted Corinne for many years in the NAACP. What is the most significant thing you learned from Corinne Owens concerning the NAACP and civil rights?
Tenacity. What I really learned from Corinne is that if you really want to achieve something in this world, you're gonna have to work hard at it. And you can, as you probably know about Corinne, and her tenacity towards something, she when she goes after it. I really learned that. I've learned how to, and it really helped me more than this NAACP. It really helped me in selling for my business, how to just continue worrying people, go after it, asking them questions, and stand on the case. And that has helped with the school board, that helped with officials downtown, helped with a lot of things.
In Mississippi, Corinne taught school for 13 years, but could not easily get a teaching job in Racine.
It's sad. Well, what they asked for, you know, I didn't have all of that, you know. But as I got here, I got going to school, and doing that, I got qualified.
How long did it take you to get a teaching job after you first applied?
Oh, 20 years.
Took you 20 years. Betty Stinson served as Corinne's secretary for 6 years in the NAACP.
Corinne helped young people when they came to town to teach. They could not find housing. They could not stay in a hotel. They could not go and find a place to rest their head at night, to do their work that they had to do at school. So someone told them to call Corinne, and she answered their call. She said, "Come over to my house. You can stay here as long as you can, and then I will help you find a place to stay." And that's exactly what several of our new teachers had to do. They stayed at Corinne's house. She fed them. She gave them a spiritual guidance by telling them to go to church with me, so that they would make sure that they would stay here, because they did not have any place to stay. And she did that.
Why did you do all the things that you have done to make things better for African Americans in Racine?
Concern, man. I could see, my goodness. I said, what I could do when I got here, and I saw so much to be done.
We asked Corinne, how has the racial climate changed in Racine?
It changed, but it didn't change enough. we got a job yet to do, and I just hope that we can get this job done.
Everyone you talk to will tell you that Felmers O. Chaney stood tall, physically and ethically.
The thing I remember mostly about Felmers Chaney and the NAACP is the fact that he brought stability to the office, and things began to move in a positive manner, because Mr. Chaney actually did not stand for any mess, and he was always truthful and honest, and so whatever he did, it was with his heart, and he did it with integrity.
He held positions of status in Milwaukee, first African-American police sergeant, co-founder of the North Milwaukee State Bank, co-creator of the Central City Plaza, solid church member, president of the NAACP. Behind the strong and imposing figure with a demeanor that commanded respect was a man who loved his community, his family, and loved to laugh.
When I think about it, getting together with Mr. Chaney was never burdensome or never, it didn't seem like work. It always seemed like fun or something upbeat, because he always had a humorous manner and a connecting manner about him. He was a joy to be around.
Felmers O. Chaney, the O was for Oscar, became a cornerstone in the history of the city of Milwaukee, but his family roots were in Spooner, Wisconsin. That's way up north in Washburn County, where they have things like the Spooner Rodeo and the Jack Frost Fest. He lived there with his mother and father, who ran a farm just outside of town. Even after settling in Milwaukee, he felt a pull to the country.
He had a group of people that would get up early in the morning and go to the south side and ride horses. So I used to get up around 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning and join them. And so all I'd have to do is pay for my riding a horse, and we had a lot of fun. We did that for about 2 or 3 years.
Felmers O. Chaney was one of the oldest of 7 children. His sister Bernice said she was the baby of the family and didn't have that much contact with her much older brother until they were adults. But she does remember growing up on this farm in Spooner. When Mr. Chaney passed, even the Spooner Advocate ran his obituary. They remembered him even there. As the sergeant of Milwaukee's 5th District in the 1960s and 70s, Chaney commanded with a quiet confidence. He could control a crowd without force.
Whenever the O.C. White or Dr. Bopp would bring Jim Brown to the city, down to the War Memorial, no, not the War Memorial, but to the auditorium, it was called Bruce Hall, then he would just patrol Bruce Hall. There's 6,000 to 7,000 people there, and only one or two policemen, and Felmers Chaney would be the policeman. And all he would have to do is point his fingers, and the people would recognize and respected him and would cut out whatever they were doing that was wrong.
Lieutenant Charles Berard was a rookie in 1977 when Sergeant Chaney ran District 5.
Felmers Chaney was kind of unique, especially back in those days. He was the first African-American sergeant that came on the job. And being such, he had a status that was extremely large in the community. The community loved him. All of the African-American officers at District 5 loved him. Some of the administrators might not have loved him. But he was a man that you could count on. If you brought him an issue, he'd tell you in black and white exactly what it was and what you should be doing. He didn't mince words. You always knew where you stood with him. But he was a neat man.
He was a pioneer. He was a trailblazer, obviously. He was the first black sergeant on the Milwaukee Police Department. And he was tough, but he was extremely fair. That's things that you always hear about him from police officers who worked with him, worked for him, was that he was tough but fair. The more that I learned about him, the more that I realized that people like me are his legacy. He achieved so much in one lifetime, it's almost unbelievable that this is one man that people are talking about. But his outer demeanor could be gruff at times, but his thing was to always do the right thing, never stop, and never give up.
He finally retired from the police force in 1983 after never reaching the top.
The thing I remember a lot about Felmers Chaney is that he should have been the chief of police in our city. He took the exam and passed it a number of times, but they never would select him. That was the administration.
But he knew how to work the politics in a different way as president of the Milwaukee branch of the NAACP.
He was willing to take a stand and to be firm and to stand for something, but he also had a humorous and a pleasant manner, so he didn't come across as aggressive or confrontational, unnecessarily. He was willing to, he would use the firmness and the commanding presence when necessary, but otherwise he would be very soft and gentle.
Under his leadership, the NAACP won a huge lawsuit against American Family Insurance. That opened the doors against housing discrimination in Milwaukee and nationwide.
A class action and a settlement of $14 million that went toward the community, $5 million in a fund where people could make claims who had been denied insurance, and $9.5 million in programs for helping people with their housing and so forth. So that was a major victory. At the time, it was the largest victory in the history of the country under the Federal Fair Housing Act
He also orchestrated an $85,000 settlement with the International House of Pancakes, IHOP, in a discrimination suit. Community historian Irene Goggins knew Chaney and his wife Jessie for many, many years.
And they had no children themselves, he and Jessie, but they were always a couple, and you never saw one without the other.
And from her vantage point, the love they shared for many, many years kept him strong. At his funeral, she wrote these remarks.
Felmers Chaney was a very special maverick who didn't always color within the lines and was notorious for not staying within the fences. And that made many folks terribly uncomfortable. But he took heart and traveled the road least traveled and made a difference in our community. And I think that kind of says for him what he was, and that he was this special maverick. And he was kind of a fearless person. It didn't matter, and he was kind of pushy.
Well, he was effective.
But forget it, but he got the job done.
From a cop to a community advocate, Felmers O. Chaney will be remembered as a man who made a big difference in Milwaukee. We'd like to do more profiles of Black Milwaukeeans who've made a difference in our community. If you know someone who is at least 70 years of age and has made significant contributions to our area, we want to hear from you. Email us at tvviewer@mptv.org or write us at Black Nouveau, 1036 North 8th Street, Milwaukee, 53233. Tell us who that person is and what he or she has done, and let us know how to get in touch with you. And here are the winners of the Raisin in the Sun contest who knew that the play's title came from the poem A Dream Deferred by Langston Hughes. Each winner will receive a pair of tickets to see the production at the Milwaukee Repertory Theater, which is here through April 14th. We note the passing of Bobby Smith, lead singer for the Spinners, the old school group that had hits like Could It Be I'm Falling in Love, Rubber Band Man, and I'll Be Around. Mr. Smith was 76 years old. And that's our program for this week. For Black Nouveau, I'm Joanne Williams. Thanks for watching, and good night.